Karen, are you available online to do the housekeeping?
Thank you, Graham. Happy to. So, housekeeping notice, formal meetings of the Charter Trustees held in part by. Please note that this meeting of the Charter Trustees is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. Please could everyone present follow these ground rules. Only speak when invited to by the Mayor. Please use the microphones on your desk when speaking, and please turn off your microphone when you are not talking. If accessing the meeting via Teams, please turn on your video function when invited to speak. If you are accessing via Teams and would like to speak on an item, please do so by utilising the raise your hand feature in the bar at the window. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the ground floor of the multi-storey car park. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Tompkins. Charter Trustees, ladies and gentlemen, I was at the annual general meeting of the Poole Charter Trustees, both in person in this room and our colleagues joining remotely and our friends and families watching online. I hope you enjoy the occasion. So, Mr Honorary Clerk, please may we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors LJ Evans, Councillor Mark Howell and Councillor May Haynes. Maybe worth saying, Madam Mayor, if I may, that there are a number of councillors attending in person, and there are also a number who are attending online via Microsoft Teams. Those online will not be able to vote, but we will be recording their attendance. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And could you go on to report any declarations of interest received?
No, I've received no declarations of interest.
Thank you. So we now move on to item 3 on the agenda, the election of Mayor, carrying with it the honorary titles of Admiral of the Port of Poole, Mayor of the Staple and Clerk of the Market. The mace bearer will announce the office of Mayor.
Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. Does any person here offer themselves for the office of Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year? Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. Does anybody here offer themselves for the office of Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year? Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. Does anybody here offer themselves for the office of for the ensuing municipal year? Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Butt to propose Councillor Julie Bagwell, who has indicated she is willing to be proposed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Mr Deputy Mayor, Honorary Clerk, Charter Trustees, Leader of the Council and Officers of the Council, it is my pleasure and privilege to propose Councillor Julie Bagwell as Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. Firstly, to thank you for all your good works with regard to your sheriff duties as you outgo and move on to your next role. Julie, widely known as Jules, but why? Because she is beyond price, a precious diamond gem, bright and sparkling, and made of the toughest substance known to man. Julie was born in the swinging 60s on a farm in the Dorchester countryside, coming from a hard-working farming background. Her dad taught her from a very early age the true benefits of hard graft from dawn till dusk. Nothing has changed. Jules was educated at Chesilbourne and Winterbourne Stickland primary schools, her senior years spent at Blandford High School. She excelled in English and spelling, and reading and crosswords were her passion. It was rather handy, as Jules was able to define the words truancy and in absentia with the greatest of ease at a very early age, she openly admitting she did occasionally skip school. However, this first-hand knowledge giving her a full understanding of youngsters in the same situation today. She calls it her University of Life. Jules moved to Poole at 16 to start her first job and met her late partner. having 3 children who all live and work in Poole. She is now a grandmother of 7, with another one on the way for good measure. Today, her partner of 18 years, Spike, a long-distance lorry driver, is certainly kept very busy. Regrettably, due to COVID restrictions numbers, he and others cannot be with us here today, but he will be watching his lovely lady Jules live on stream. So what about Jules? A Ronseal girl. You get exactly what you see on the tin, and as Jules says, end of. I first met my dear friend Jules in the early 2000s at the first area committee meeting in Hamworthy, she grabbing my instant interest. Perched on the edge of her seat, her hands waving furiously in the air to get the attention of the dozing chair, to share with him and the gathered public exactly her thoughts on the matter under debate. Julie served as Poole Housing Partnership tenant rep in Hamworthy in the early 2000s, a real voice for those who could so often not speak up for themselves. Yes, that's our Jules, putting her community first and last and in between, a natural leader and genuine ambassador for her community. Over the decades, we've enjoyed working together on many community projects. Jules, supported by many amazing volunteers, setting up and running one of the first library cafes in the newly then opened Hamworthy Library. Her coffee and cakes only bettered by her endless knowledge and support of her community, and where to go to get anything done, which bottom to kick, by whom, and quickly. A trendsetter in the now common library cafe offer. Jules was integral in organising the many Watch This Space fun days on Hamworthy Rec. Her boundless energy and finite command of getting everyone to do exactly what was necessary, including the kids attending, ensured they were always huge fun, regardless of the weather, and always delivered with minimal funding. Perhaps one of the most memorable events was the community refurbishment of Lake Pier toilets. We had no money and little equipment, but working again with amazing volunteers, we scrubbed the toilets from top to bottom, painted the carbon dated wood, woodworm and all, inside and out, dug a massive gully, as you do, to clear block drains and the flooding car park. Her knowledge of farmland shovels and their uses from her farming days coming in very handy indeed. Jules, we discovered, had a particular unknown skill in tiling, repairing and replacing huge areas of the toilet walls and floors. She admitting to Spike, her partner, when she eventually got home rather late, that yes, she had definitely been out for a night on the tiles. Jules was our Hamworthy Safer Neighbourhood Chair for many years, retiring in 2014 to stand as Borough Poole Councillor in her Hamworthy ward to represent her community, her absolute passion. She was duly elected in 2015 and returned again with a huge majority in 2019 as a councillor for our new BCP authority. In that same year, Jules was elected as Sheriff of Poole. Little did we know then that COVID was to strike and we'd find ourselves in very strange times. Thus, due to COVID, history's been made for Jules, because she's the first lady to complete a 2-year tenure as Sheriff of Poole and once safely elected today, a potential of 4 years in mayoral office. So in summary, we all now know Jules. We know her for her candour, her unstinting dedication to serving her residents, her total non-political stance that drives her to improve the lives of everyone in her community, and her deeply entrenched passion for Poole to ensure that Poole's history, integrity and pride is maintained in perpetuity. Jules' life mantra is, we must be who we are and speak as we find, just as she does, because as she says, those who do don't mind, and those who do don't matter. And finally, yes, Jules is always there for those who think for themselves, who cannot think for themselves, the least significant amongst us, those who definitely need a hand up, not a handout. She explaining quietly to one of her residents recently when needing a kind word that, if you think you are too small to make a difference, then try sleeping with a mosquito. Jules is definitely on track to make that difference. I therefore have no hesitation to formally propose that Councillor Mrs. Julie Bagwell be so elected as Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Judes. Call on the other Councillor, Councillor Daniel Butt, to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Mr Deputy Mayor, Honorary Clerk, Charter Trustees, Leader of the Council and Officers of the Council. It is my pleasure and privilege to second the proposal for Councillor Julie Bagwell as Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. As we have heard, Jules is pragmatic and a plain speaker. As her ward councillor and friend, I have learned so much from her in my short tenure as a councillor, especially to always be honest and tell it like it is. There is no room for flim-flam in Jules' books. I was at the area committee meeting which Councillor Dewsbutt refers to in her address. My recollection was Jules in a brightly coloured dress, hair swept back up into a ponytail, surrounded by people, all wanting her advice and time. Her first words were to me, "How can I help you, my babe?" Little did I know then that it would be Jules would help me fulfil my own long-led dream to become a councillor many years later. I was an awkward teen, and she instantly got my attention, and I hers. I'm sure she was bored to death listening to me telling her all my teenage angst, but she did listen, and that is what makes her so special. She really listens and genuinely hears you. Then she acts immediately like it's a whirlwind to sort the problem out. My fondest recollection of Jules in her committee is seeing her in her rolled up legging, shoes and socks off, her handbag slung over her shoulder, splashing about in Hamworthy paddling pool, delighted that the works to begin, to provide Poole with a super leisure facility again. Jules was right at the heart of making this happen. Jules is an independent by name and hugely independent by nature, a real force for good. I am confident that she will uphold the dignity and pride of the office and bring a fresh new energy to the role. Therefore, I am delighted to second the proposal that Councillor Julie Bagwell be so elected as Mayor of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Daniel Butt. So I put the motion that Councillor Julie Bagwell be elected Mayor, incorporating the honorary titles of Admiral of the Port of Poole, Mayor of the Staple and Clerk of the Market for the ensuing municipal year. Can I remind all Charter trustees that only those present in this room are able to vote? We are quorate, so that's all in order. So those in favour of Councillor Julie Bagwell as Mayor for the ensuing municipal year? Thank you. And those against? Thank you. So that is carried. I declare the election of Councillor Julie Bagwell as Mayor, Admiral of the Port of Poole, Mayor of the Staple and Clerk of the Market for the ensuing municipal year. The Mayor will now depart for a few minutes to allow her to be robed. Thank you.
Could you please stand whilst the Mayor leaves the room? Thank you.
Please be seated.
Members of the council, officers of the council, ladies and gentlemen, would you please be upstanding to receive the worshipful, the Mayor of Poole. Thank you.
Please be seated, everyone.
Okay. Right, we now take item 4 on the agenda. Oh, I better take that off. We now take item 4 on the agenda, which is the election of Deputy Mayor, carrying with it the honorary title of Senior Bailiff. I now invite Councillor Millie Earle to propose Councillor Marion LePoidevin. Change that, don't get off me.
Madam Mayor, Freeman of the Borough, Charter Trustees, distinguished guests, officers, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm proposing Councillor Marion LePoidevin to be Deputy Mayor of Poole after an unusual yet exceptional 2 years serving as our very first Charter Mayor of Poole. When I proposed Marion as Mayor back in June 2019, I commented on her commitment to her civic duty, community and country, and the last 2 years have proved me right. From the very start, Marion has embraced the role of Mayor, and in that first summer she attended over 80 events, from life milestones, graduations at the university and primary schools, and citizenship ceremonies. Marion settled into the role fast, and her husband and consort David did the same, supporting Marion in her work as Mayor. One highlight from that first summer was when she welcomed 16 locally supported children from Belarus to the council chamber who had come from an area where the soil and water was still affected by the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. 4 weeks away from the contamination will add 5 years to their lives. Throughout that first winter, it became clear that Marion thoroughly enjoyed being Mayor of Poole, enthusiastically approaching events and launches such as the care home in Oakdale, unveiling a defibrillator and opening a community fridge in Branksome Library, attending shows and Christmas concerts, meeting Santa at the Quay, and many more Christmas events. She proudly embraced regalia talks here at the Civic Centre and always sung the praises of the civic team, including mace bearers Gary and Mike. When the pandemic hit and the country entered lockdown, the same applied to the mayoralty. Marion continued in her role though, albeit from her home, recording a message to residents to celebrate the 75th anniversary of VE Day and sending flowers and speaking on the phone to residents who had reached their 100th birthday. At the start of her mayoralty, Marion chose to support and promote Poole Food Bank, and she could not have chosen more wisely considering the pressures on families across Poole and indeed the country, as the pandemic disrupted people's lives and threw many into food security. At the request of the High Sheriff of Dorset, Marion chose not to nominate individuals who had given outstanding service during the pandemic for an award, but opted to nominate the people of Poole, who had shown great strength and resilience and compassion and done so much to help their neighbours and communities and continue to do so. As the year progressed and the country was in and out of lockdowns, Marion took every opportunity to continue in her role as Mayor whilst we were unable to hold another mayor making. Communities found new ways to connect and celebrate safely without being in the same room, such as Canford Heath's residents putting poppies on lampposts in remembrance, or the light-up competitions bringing sparkle to people's lives with Christmas lights, all of which Marion was involved in. As we look ahead at a brighter future for Poole, Marion leaves behind a valuable legacy. It was in the spirit of community and generosity that Marion recently launched the Mayor's Award and presented the very first one to Amanda Adams, who goes above and beyond by cleaning up Sandbanks Beach to protect our valuable wildlife from harm. This last year has shown Poole is strong, and the people of Poole are generous and giving, much like Marion. I'd like to formally thank David for carrying out his role as consort diligently and respectfully. I'd also like to thank Marion for her commitment, resilience and courage to perform exceptionally as Mayor of Poole and propose her as Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Chartered Trustees, officers of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to be able to second the nomination to elect Councillor Marion LePoidevin as Deputy Mayor of Poole. As we know, Marion was elected in 2019 as Poole's first Charter Mayor. At that time, we had no knowledge of COVID-19 or the dramatic changes that were to come. This past year and more has been a roller coaster of events as COVID has affected every aspect of our lives. But Marion, to her credit, coped extremely well, serving the residents of Newtown and Heatherlands as the hard-working councillor that she is, and stepping up to the previously unknown challenges of being the Mayor of Poole in the middle of a global pandemic, which was definitely not in the job description. But Marion carried out her duties as Mayor without fuss or bother, doing what she could, when she could, in her usual efficient manner, and it was always service with a smile. Marion has been a brilliant Mayor and has served Poole well. And I have every confidence that with the support of her husband David, she will carry out the duties of Poole's Deputy Mayor to the best of her ability. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to second this nomination to elect Marion as Deputy Mayor of Poole for the following municipal year. Thank you.
Right, I put the motion that Councillor Marion LePoidevin be appointed Deputy Mayor, incorporating the honorary title of Senior Bailiff of the Borough for the ensuing municipal year. Those in favour? Oh, I got to put mine up. Yeah, you do. Right. Any against? No. Carried. Thank you. I will now ask the Deputy Mayor to put on her badge, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I suggest that we now ask you to take the declaration of office and to make your speech, then we'll move straight to the declaration of office of the Deputy Mayor and for her speech as well, if that's okay.
That's right, thank you. Yes, thank you. Right. Having been elected to the office of Mayor of Poole, I declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Madam Mayor, then if I sign to confirm the declaration.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, if you'd like to make your speech.
Thank you. Right, I'm truly honoured to have been elected to the role of Mayor of Poole. I look forward to working with the communities, with all of the residents of Poole, especially Hamworthy, because Hamworthy and everyone's precious to me. I want to be getting out there with the businesses and charities. I have 4 charities that I will be helping to be getting more money in and more funding. They are the Cushtybog, Friends of Hamley Park, Winchelsea School and Hamworthy Hedgehog Rescue. I aim to meet as many people as I can, working closely with all of my colleagues across BCP Council. Poole is a fabulous place to live, and I aim to endorse Poole's its heritage and at all times. Please, if you would like me to attend any events, I will always endeavour to do so. Thank you all. I say that, don't I? I now invite. I now invite the Deputy Mayor to say a few words. Lost myself.
Declaration, yes, yes.
Me?
No, Deputy Mayor.
I, Marion LePoidevin, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the Poole Charter Trustees, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Slade. Okay, then I'll sign to confirm the declaration was made and sign before me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also appoint my husband, David LePoidevin, to be my Deputy Mayor's consort for the ensuing municipal year.
Okay, ready? I now invite the Deputy Mayor to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank my proposer and seconder for their kind words. I feel quite embarrassed hearing their words, but it was lovely to be actually taken back through my time as mayor and for facing some of the highlights, because it has been a fantastic time. Some of it, of course, seems a very long time ago now, nearly 2 years. I've got many other people I want to thank. I want to thank the council team, the mayor's secretaries, Carolyn Souter and Hazel Randall, the mace bearers and the chauffeurs, Gary, Jeff and Carl, who are all with us today, which is lovely. And to my fellow members of the Civic Party, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Brian Dion, the Sheriff, who is now, of course, Mayor, Julie Bagwell, and to my chaplain, the Reverend Mark Kimber, who has had very little to do in the last year or so, but made a big impression, and I thank him sincerely for his handling of the Remembrance Day service in Poole Park in 2019. And a special thanks to my consort, my husband David, for his total support and always being at my side, or possibly occasionally a couple of steps behind. As I said when I took on the role of mayor in June 2 years ago, a former mayor once told me, if you get the chance to be mayor, grab it. It's a fantastic experience. And having now done the role for getting on for 2 years, I totally agree with him. So I want to thank you all, the Charter Trustees of Poole, for giving me this experience. I've learned so much more about the people and communities of Poole and all the varied great things that happen here, often unsung and behind the scenes. And as my proposer has already mentioned, a bonus of being in the role for a second year with very few commitments was that I was able to get the Mayor's Award launched to celebrate the contribution made by so many volunteers. So far, as you've heard, we've only had the nomination for one recipient who was worthy of the award, and I hope there will be far more in the future. There are so many worthy people in Poole doing their contribution, often unsung, and have done it for years, and that's what we really want to celebrate, the long-term commitment, year in and year out. It's been a privilege to be able to share in many life events, such as citizenship ceremonies, welcoming people maybe who've lived here for a long, long time, maybe fairly recent arrivals into our community. And I was delighted that my last function on Wednesday of this week was sharing a 100th birthday with a resident of a local care home. And it was even more significant to me because it turns out that we're actually members of the same church, although she's not been able to attend for a long time. And I didn't actually know her. We had that link. I also learned something about myself during this year. Well, probably quite a lot, but one thing particular. 2 years ago, I had no idea until the mace bearers told me that apparently I have a particular skill at inserting the pins in the shoulders of clothes to hold the chains. I'm not sure that that's going to be a skill that I really need in the future, but it was nice to be told that I was good at something. So my hope for the Mayor, Councillor Julie Bagwell, this year is that she will have an experience much more similar to my first 9 months in the job, and that we won't have to live under the restrictions of the last 15 months for much longer. So Madam Mayor, I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion, Sheriff of Poole. No, Deputy Mayor, sorry, I'm getting this all wrong. We will now take item 5 on the agenda, the election of Sheriff. I now invite Councillor Mike Brooks to propose Councillor Tony Trent.
Madam Mayor, Charter Trustees, officers of the Council, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to propose my colleague, Councillor Tony Trent, for the office of Sheriff of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. However, before I detail some of Councillor Trent's attributes, it falls upon me to express sincere thanks to Councillor Dion, our retiring Deputy Mayor, and his wife, the Deputy Mayoress, for their support to the Mayor throughout what has been a period of disruption and uncertainty. They have carried out their duties with dignity, dedication and respect. Brian, thank you. So, what does the role of Sheriff involve? To find this out, we need to go back in time, initially to the 23rd of June, 1568, when the office of Sheriff of Poole was created by the Great Charter of Queen Elizabeth I. This made Poole a county corporate and allowed the people of Poole to elect their own sheriff and mayor. It also ended any control the Lord of the Manor might have had over the residents of Poole. Poole thus joined an elite group of only 19 towns that had the right to elect a sheriff. The key role of the sheriff at that time was keeper of the local jail. Somehow, I can't see Tony in that particular position, even though he will be in the possession of the original key itself. However, his passion for preserving Poole's heritage, whether it be historical or cultural, his support, for example, for the BSO and the Lighthouse, is well known and makes him an ideal candidate for what has become a ceremonial role and honorary title, which follows local government reform and the granting of a royal charter on April the 1st, 1974 by Queen Elizabeth II. As a local boy, Tony was born and brought up in Poole, married a local girl, Anne, and raised his family in Poole. He has a deep and sound knowledge and understanding of the town, both attributes that will stand him in good stead while carrying out his duties. Within England, the existence of the position of sheriff can be traced even further back in time than 1568. The sheriff was then appointed by the king or queen and acted as a royal agent, was responsible for collecting rent and taxes, as well as maintaining law and order by keeping land free of outlaws. However, it was all too easy to be corrupted by the system, as illustrated by the alleged behaviour of the Sheriff of Nottingham during the reign of Richard I, 1189 to 1199. During that period, the activities of Robin of Locksley, aka Robin Hood, also became embedded in folklore. I can't help thinking that if Councillor Trent had been sheriff at that time, there may well have been a very different storyline from the one we are so familiar with. Unlike that Sheriff of Nottingham, Tony is highly principled, has a strong moral fibre and social values that always put those less fortunate than himself first. His heart is in his community of Alderney and Bourne Valley, where he has represented the residents for more than 30 years. His support for the homeless and his involvement with young people is well documented, as are his efforts to involve the community in social events and activities. He has also been a champion for public transport, always arguing to retain threatened bus services within his community. Tony may be, to use his own words, a grumpy old man from time to time, especially if IT is involved. And he may not always be on time, mace bearers take note, but he is a very genuine guy, committed to the preservation of Poole and its heritage. I regard it an honour as well as a privilege to be able to propose Councillor Tony Trent for the office of Sheriff of Poole for the ensuing municipal year.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I now invite Councillor Vikki Slade to second the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Charter Trustees of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, both present and watching online, I am honoured and somewhat surprised to have been invited by Tony to second the nomination for the inimitable Tony Trent to be elected as Sheriff of Poole. Tony has always held tradition and history dear to him, and so I can think of no better person to become one of only a handful of remaining sheriffs left in England. And may I add, it's about time too. An example of Tony's commitment to the history of our town was his campaign to save the metal box chimney in Hamworthy after working in the factory there many years earlier. And he is never afraid to champion a cause with passion and searing honesty, even if he is the only person who seems to be interested in that issue. My colleague Mike Brooke has already mentioned the key to the jail, and I'm sure he's also glad that he is no longer responsible for the collecting of the taxes on behalf of the monarch. His commitment to our community is a real inspiration, in particular on issues of housing and youth services, and the town of Poole should count itself lucky to have his commitment to his civic duty in the coming years through his election to sheriff and then, all being well, on to become mayor. I know he will particularly enjoy the opportunity to champion the arts and culture across Poole, especially if he has the chance to bring his eclectic range of musical interests into the role. A message to anyone planning to open a record shop during the next few years: invite Tony to open it and you will make him the happiest man alive. Tony is proof that if you stay around long enough, your opportunity to carry out the job of your dreams will come around, and I'm delighted his patience has paid off, and I'm proud to second the nomination for his role of sheriff for the ensuing municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I now put the motion that Councillor Tony Trent be elected sheriff for the next municipal year. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, was it? No. Right, I now declare the election of Councillor Tony Trent as Sheriff of Poole for the ensuing municipal year. We will now invest the new sheriff. Oh, I didn't have the thing. Yeah, I didn't have it on. Can I repeat it? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Right. Traditionally, I will present you with the items placed on the table in front of you. The key is an original Poole Town jail key and symbolically represents the historic duty of the sheriff as keeper of the town jail. The staff or wand is surmounted with a crown, signifying the former connection with the monarch. So you have the honour of the Queen for you. I will now ask the new sheriff to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank my proposer and seconder, Mike and Vikki, and fellow Charter Trustees for giving me this opportunity to put a foot into the long history of what was known as the county and borough of Poole. Poole is one of 14 or 15, depending on who you ask, towns and cities in England that still have a sheriff. When researching online late last night, I was only able to find 9, fortunately including Poole, that identified themselves as having a sheriff. And a 10th one that I'm aware of has a sheriff because they were due to host a national gathering last September until our world was turned upside down by a global pandemic. If this was turned into a question on a popular TV programme, it would have at least 4 pointless answers. With one obvious exception, the one you wouldn't use on pointless, most towns and cities operate the position of sheriff, or shire reeve in Old English, as a gentle practice for the more onerous role of mayor. Being a lifelong member of the awkward squad, I see it as a bit more than that. Not only does the role, which has existed in Poole since 1568, keep the historic position alive, albeit in name only, I believe it can also be used to keep the history of Poole, which goes back 2,500 years, not just the 1,000 years that's documented in the archives online. On a lighter note, for those of a nervous disposition, traffic engineers or those that deal with public liability issues, when I anticipated taking this role on, I shared my thoughts with a few people on the reenacting of an ancient right of the Sheriff of Poole, the ability to drive their sheep across the town bridge. Those who know me well or have had the misfortune to drive me up to Harrogate back in the 1990s may be aware that I willingly share my thoughts on the cognitive processes of sheep. To my surprise, having shared my desire to do such a thing during my year as sheriff, someone rather took me aback by suggesting that they could quite possibly secure the sheep. The only missing link is how such an event could be used to raise funds for the mayor's charity. That bit still eludes me. Finally, I want to make reference to someone who passed away during the last 12 months. Former Town Clerk Ian Andrews lived and breathed the history of Poole. He would have been my go-to person to find out interesting things that happened in our town's past. My one hope is that we can somehow inspire a young person or two, cleverer and better organised than I could ever be, to develop a passion for Poole and its history and keep it alive. Though my personal philosophy is one of global cooperation and internationalism, I believe we should make time to find out about, celebrate and keep alive our local history. I look forward to supporting the mayor and the place I and at least a couple of previous generations of my family was born in, Poole, Dorset. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We will now take item 6 on the agenda, the appointment of one representative and substitute to the Association of Charter Trustees. Can I please seek nominations? Thank you, Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and may I give you my congratulations as well. Could I please nominate our new sheriff, Councillor Tony Trent, and Councillor Daniel Butt as substitute. I'm not going to say anything, but I would say, as a son of Nottingham, I do have an eye on you, new sheriff.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Burton. Are there any other nominations? Oh, seconded, sorry. Seconded by Councillor Steve Brown, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barron. Are there any other nominations? No? It's carried then. I now put the motion that... Oh, sorry, vote. It's not on there. Okay, we go to the vote now, yes?
Yeah, it must be very down. I put the motion.
So I read this now?
Yes, yeah.
No. Are there any other nominations I've just done? I now put the motion that councillors Tony Trent and Daniel Butt be appointed representative and substitute to the Association of Charter Trustees. Those in favour? Any against? Carried. Okay. I declare that councillors Tony Trent and Daniel Butt be appointed representative and substitute to the Association of Charter Trustees. Thank you. Right, we will now take item 7 on the agenda to appoint budget signatories. Can I please seek nominations?
Madam Mayor, I would like to nominate Councillors Tony O'Neill and Councillor Marcus Andrews to this important, significant role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. Do we have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, congratulations on your new role. I'd like to second this proposal.
Thank you. And now we vote. So, all in favour? Okay. Against? That's carried. That's done. Right, I now put the motion that councillors Tony O'Neill and Marcus Andrews be appointed budget signatories. Those in done that bit. Right, yeah. I declare that councillors Tony O'Neill and Marcus Andrews be appointed budget signatories. We will now take item 8 on the agenda to agree the calendar of meetings. The Charter Trustees are asked to consider the following arrangements for meetings in accordance with the standing orders. The 23rd of June 2021, 27th of October 2021, 26th of January 2022 and the 20th of May 2022. Those in favour? Any against? Carried. I declare the Charter Trustees have agreed the calendar of meetings in accordance with the standing orders. Members, that concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you to those attending and our virtual guests watching the live streamed meeting. Thank you very much.